Hey there, welcome to the next episode of Entrepreneurship Simplified. My name is Keith Hevlin. I am your host. And today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about mistakes that I see entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs make on a fairly regular basis. These are things that when people come to me with business ideas, this has been happening to me for years and years. People will say, hey, I got this great business idea. And it's a mistake that I see a lot of people make, and I just kind of want to share it, just the three biggest ones that I see people make. So hopefully, if you're watching this and you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, hopefully this can help you. Or maybe if you've already started, you can kind of back up a little bit and be able to apply some of this knowledge and make things a little bit better for yourself. So the first thing that I see people mess up with is the idea of, hey, I've got this great idea. Now I'm going to go start this business, and they don't actually think about, hey, what am I going to do to actually get a customer? So I see a lot of this in people who have a particular skill set. So when I was back in the dealership world, you would see a mechanic who says, hey, I'm the best mechanic in the shop. Everybody always comes to me for answers. I fix everybody's problems. I fix people at friends and family members. They bring them over to my house. I fix it. You know what? I'm tired of only getting paid X number of dollars per hour. When the shop charges $125 an hour and I only get paid $35 an hour, I'm going to go out and I'm going to charge $100 an hour. I'm going to go, I'm going to make a business out of this. So it's not that they're not capable of it. If they're the best mechanic in the shop, they are probably more than capable of it. But there's a really big issue with that. And where are you going to get your customers? So to start out with, they're super busy because they're fixing their mom's car, their brother's car, the neighbor's car, everybody's car, that has a problem right now. But the biggest problem with that is hopefully they stay fixed, and you have to have a continual source of broken down cars coming your way in order for you to fix them. And again, I've seen this multiple times in my brief stint in the industry, the car dealership industry, where a guy goes out on his own. He's gone for, 3, 4, 5 months, sometimes even 6 months. And then he comes back and says, hey, I hate owning my own thing. Can I come back? And sometimes it's because they don't like the entire idea of running a shop on their own. But most of the time they just ran out of cars. They ran out of cars to fix. So what happened was they're the best at what they do, but part of what they're not good at is getting a new customer. So, they figured it was kind of like if you're old like myself, you'll get this reference. The Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And it's not really that. Just because you start a shop or you start your business doesn't mean that your ideal client is going to come busting down your door. If they don't know you exist, then how can they possibly do that, right? So that is, and I see that it's not just with mechanics. It's with any service company or, even online people. I'm going to sell this widget right here. It's a great idea. It's awesome. But they don't actually take the time to go, okay, well, how am I going to get my customers? Because I built my online store. I made, 10,000 widgets. The price is right. Had everybody tell me that the price is great. Now I got to sell them. And they don't think about all the marketing that has to go into making sure that they are actually able to sell this wonderful widget that they've made. And I'm going to get experts on here that can talk in their own words about, the best way to do that. Like if you're starting a company, what's the best way to market? But, this episode is just me by myself, obviously. And I just want to kind of talk about hey, if you're thinking about starting your own gig, that's great. I encourage everybody I know to try it once. Again, kind of like working in the food industry. Everybody should try it once, see what it's like for us entrepreneurs out there trying to make a living on our own. But don't do it without having an actual plan put together. And the biggest part of that plan, or, obviously a very big part of it, is you have to have people that are willing to give you money for the goods or services that you are willing to trade to them for their money. And not having a plan for how you're going to get customers in the short term and the long term is a very, very big mistake. So the second mistake that I see people make on a regular basis is not having a long enough runway. And what I mean by that is not having enough capital to be able to make the runway to get the plane off the ground in order to be successful. So another good example, I want to start a nail salon. I'm great at it. I've got a couple of friends that want to rent booths from me. I'm going to go sign a lease. I'm going to make this place super nice. Here we go. Well, the problem is you spent all the money that you have getting your nail salon built out. These girls that are gonna lease from you, only half of them come. So they're going to rent a booth, but only half of them come. So, and they're not paying very much. So the problem is now you have to start putting nails on people. And let's say you even have some customers coming in, but it takes a while to ramp these things up. It's not, again, it's not the field of dreams. If you build it, they don't just show up. So it takes time to ramp things up and get sales going. And the problem I see a lot of times is they just run out of cash. They run out, like I have to pay my bills at home. Like I have to pay for my car. I can't get my car repossessed. I got to pay for my house. I got to pay for electricity, water, so on and so forth. Got to pay for food. And they run out of cash. And it's terrible to see that because, they spend so much money building out whatever it is they built out. And then it ultimately just goes back to the landlord. The landlord leased it to you, whether or not they should have, who knows? Sometimes landlords put a lot more effort into vetting whether or not you can afford to lease from them than others. Sometimes they'll lease to you like, hey, you say you can afford it? Cool, here it is. Sometimes they put you through a pretty rigorous test to make sure that you can actually afford it. But, that's not necessarily really their job. It's your job to make sure that you have enough runway to get this plane off the ground, to get this business off the ground and make sure that it can support you financially. And not taking the time to do that and making sure that you have the capital or access to the capital, right? I mean, again, just because I started my nail salon doesn't mean that it has to be all my cash. It might be, your cousin, your mom, an investor, whoever it is, but you need to know that you have access to that capital, because the worst thing in the world to do is start a business, spend tens of thousands or even sometimes up into six figures getting this business ready, getting it launched, and then running out of capital, having to shut the entire thing down and go back and work for somebody else. It pains me every time I see somebody do that. It's so hard to watch. And, a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs, people who would like to work for themselves, don't necessarily understand how much capital it'll actually take. Or two, even if they understand it, they think, oh, well, I'll be different. I'll be able to get customers super fast. And because what I'm selling, the product or service I'm selling is so good that I'll be able to defy all the odds and I'll be able to get it taken care of, in a short enough time that my runway it doesn't need to be very long. And again, it's just really hard to watch that. And if you're not good with finances, or frankly, even if you are good at finances, have somebody else look at it. Have an accountant look at it, have a business coach look at it, have someone take a look at it to try to vet the process, poke some holes in it and say, okay, hey, are you sure you have enough capital? Because again, what I'd hate to do is watch you go take $50,000 of your hard-earned money, throw it into something and then go, oh no, yeah, I'm out of cash. No one will loan me money. What am I going to do now? And then go out of bank and you either go bankrupt, get your car repossessed. There's some terrible things that can go along with this. Abandoning the business is the least of your concerns at that point if you can't pay your own personal bills. So that's another thing, and that's an avoidable one as well. Talk to somebody. A lot of places have resources, free resources where you can go talk to people about, hey, I have this business plan. Can you help me walk through this? Help me walk through the finances for my plan. Here in Corpus Christi, where I am, we have the Coastal Bend Innovation Center where I volunteer and I help people walk through this all the time. And it's fun for me to do because, again, I like to watch people start businesses. I like to help them. I like to, kind of challenge them on things, but also I don't like watching people fail. So there's tons of people out there that you can pay, or, some places that you can get for free in order to make sure that you don't make this mistake and make sure that your runway is long enough for you to get the business off the ground. And the third mistake that I see people make, and, even friends of mine that I've helped start businesses, I see them make this mistake. Brad, this is you. I'm talking directly to you. They try to do everything for themselves for too long. And, again, if you're starting as a side gig and you're just trying to get something going because, hey, I got this job and I hate this job and I want to go work for myself, you do kind of sometimes just have to do everything for yourself, right? Like you don't have an option. But as you start to grow, and especially if you're the one who's doing all the work, as you start to grow, it gets kind of dangerous to be you're the one who's doing absolutely everything. You're doing the service, you're answering the phone calls, you're the one that's doing the billing, you're the one that's making sure that the um, invoices are sent out, but also that they're getting paid. You're making sure that the marketing's going well. You're making sure that everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen. Because what happens is you get burned out and you drop the ball on something. And typically it's the thing that you aren't comfortable with. So if you're not comfortable with QuickBooks, you're not comfortable with, calling people and saying, hey, I need you to pay your bill because you haven't paid yet. Those are the things that will typically drop first. If you don't like talking to people and customer service isn't your thing, you'll stop answering the phone as quickly as what maybe you should, because like, hey, I'm working, or hey, I've got all this going on. Like, I'll call them back. I'll text them back. Well, at that point, the service that was so great that you were offering to somebody is now maybe not quite as great, or you're not getting paid for the great service that you're offering because you're not doing a good job of following up. And they all lead to problems. And the thing that I'll tell everybody and I've used this for years. I've used it for years before it was actually like cool to do it, is, outsourcing your work. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go offshore with it. You don't have to go to India or the Philippines or Colombia, Mexico, wherever it is. You can outsource to other people in the US. Obviously, you can get virtual assistants in the US as well. But finding somebody, it doesn't have to be somebody who's in the town with you. It doesn't have to be somebody who's close to you that you know. You can find a bookkeeper that's halfway around the world or that's in another state that will do what you need them to do at a price point that you can afford. And that doesn't mean necessarily go find the cheapest or even go find the most expensive bookkeeper. But, price doesn't always necessarily reflect quality, right? And I'll talk about this a lot later in other podcasts, where I always encourage my people to try to, ones that I help start a business, don't be Walmart, try to charge at the top end of whatever the market will bear. But, not everybody's willing to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. And, again, there's great, extremely intelligent bookkeepers and CPAs in other countries that will work for half the price of somebody in the United States, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when you're starting out and you just need the help. If you need somebody to help answer the phones for you, there's answering services. There's answering services that answer. All the people aren't located in the United States. I mean, call any credit card company, any big company in the world. At this point, it feels like you get put into some queue, and then somebody from another country that you have a hard time understanding answers the phone. You might not want to do that. You might want to find somebody that answers the phone only with native English speakers that don't have a thick accent. But there are companies out there that will do that for you. Like, you can Google it, you can find them. And if you ever have any questions about any of this stuff that I say, hit me up. I mean, you can email me. Keith@yellowfindigital.com is the fastest email to get me. But you can reach me any way you want. Find me on LinkedIn, email podcast@boxbiz.us. I'm happy to talk to you about any of the stuff that I talk about on the podcast. But I mean, the reality is you can find very, very good employees that will do a very, very good job for you all over the world. I do it. I have a great group of team members that are in the Philippines. Good friend and our business partner out of India. I've been doing work with him now since 2015. He's fantastic. His team that is our direct employees of mine, they do a fantastic job for Yellowfin Digital. And I've got people in Canada, for goodness sake. I try to get the best talent at the price that I can afford at the time. And sometimes, I just stick with that talent and give them big pay raises to be able to keep them happy and keep them content and make it so they don't want to go anywhere. But the reality is you can almost always find somebody to do the service that you need really, really well somewhere in the world for a price that you can afford. And it sucks to think that you let your business start to go downhill or even maybe potentially fail because you try to do everything yourself instead of hiring somebody who can do what you can't do, or frankly, what you don't want to do. I don't want to answer phones all day. I don't ever want to start a business where I have to be the main person answering the phones. So if I do that, I'm going to hire an answering service, or I'm going to hire a full-time person to answer the phones. Any way you spin it, I don't want to answer phones because that's not going to be the best use of my time. It's not what I like doing. It's not what I'm necessarily good at. So let's find somebody who's really good at that. And I suggest the same thing to entrepreneurs as well. Again, Brad, I'm looking at you. Make sure you get the right people in there to help you out. But yeah, I mean, so those are three of the most common mistakes that I see. There's a lot more, and I've I've made all of these, to be very clear. I've suffered through all these, so I'm speaking from personal experience when I say, hey, like, don't do these things because it makes it very, very, very hard to have a good, long-term, successful business. So again, there's a lot more mistakes out there that we'll cover over the coming weeks, months, years of things not to do, things to do. But these are just three really easy ones that I could just jump on and talk about and say, hey, look, you need to avoid these at all costs. And again, if you ever want to talk about it, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about any of these things with anybody at any time. Again, talking about entrepreneurship is fun for me, so I'm happy to do it. But that's all I've got for this podcast. I appreciate you guys joining. Thanks for listening. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Your next step, take what you've learned today and put it into action. Now, if this episode gave you something to think about, do me a favor and leave a review or share it with someone you think needs to hear it. And if you have any thoughts, let's continue this discussion. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Let's simplify entrepreneurship together. We'll see you on the next one.